Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Men of War 2. So for those on across it, I do overviews and reviews pretty much daily on the channel. And when it's an overview, I just look at the first 2 hours of the game because that's the Steam refund window. Steam thinks you can make up your mind about whether you want to keep a game or not in 2 hours, and I kind of agree. I would say broadly speaking, 20 hours in, you're not going to change your mind about a game 2 hours in. So this will be a short, punchy video. It gives you the broad strokes. I keep it under 10 minutes, give you an idea if this game's for you, if you want to wishlist it or whatever. And also for me to figure out what I want to review going forward with the time that I have. So I've been playing this in pre-release. I've actually had it for a little while and I sort of split my time with it because there's one real major sticking point, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Men of War is a bit of a cult classic series. I think they've got like Assault Squad spin-offs and all that, and to be perfectly honest, this is definitely outside of my expertise. I'm coming at this as a normie, right? A bit of an outsider. I believe Men of War 1 came out 10 years ago in 2014, so there's a good chance that I actually maybe go back and review it because I've been doing a bit of a side project reviewing games from 10 years ago. But also worth mentioning my credentials in this space, because this conversation can never be had about Men of War without talking about Company of Heroes. Now, Company of Heroes is the more mainstream, accessible game, and they're kind of quite different. Though if you just wanted to do it in a little blurb, you could say that that's much more punchy and action-packed and traditional RTS a la something like a StarCraft, whereas Men of War is much more of a skirmish game. It's not about building bases, and it's got an absurd amount of micro to its detriment in some cases, especially when it comes to getting new players interested in it. But at the same time, if Company Heroes isn't sweaty enough for you, I believe Men of War is kind of where you go. Also, structurally, the way that the game works is kind of like a leapfrogging meets tug of war sim. The maps, and it's all pretty much the same here, but the maps are like these sort of long columns. I'm using my hands as I do, where you are essentially trying to push-pull the front line up or down the screen. So very much like I said, Company Heroes skirmishes, they're more like domination-based stuff from first-person shooters where it'll be like 3 control points and you dynamically control them, and that's its own nuance. This is very much about push a front line as far as you can sort of go, and then maybe nudge another front line as well. If you just send your dudes up the guts, they will get minced immediately. So like the lethality and the simulation quality of this, and that goes for bloody tanks as well, is very high. Anyway, so that's the setup if you're a bit of a normie like me and you don't know much about Men of War, full stop. How is this different from the original? I don't know a huge amount. I wouldn't say terribly, because what I just described there is the core gameplay loop. Here, this probably had a graphic overhaul and systems overhaul and all that sort of stuff. But so far, it's really fun. And it seems like there's a lot of content in here as well. I haven't even touched on the multiplayer thing. It doesn't interest me quite so much. Even though, I used to play 1v1 Company Heroes 1s like a lot. I really quite enjoyed it. So yeah, the multiplayer's there. And it seems that the dev is really maybe pushing the multiplayer component, but I am in pre-release and I don't really talk to other reviewers because I just want to make up my own mind. In that, every time you finish a main single player mission, it's giving me like multiplayer rewards, like unlocks for multiplayer. So they're kind of trying to push that. But it's worth pointing out all the content that's here. It seems pretty wild. There's a whole bunch of campaign stories, and I played like my first hour, I played the Soviet campaign, and it's all voice acted kind of terribly but charmingly, in that double-A jank kind of way. So you have like set piece campaigns that have a narrative running through them, a la Company of Heroes. And I believe there's 3 of them. I don't have it right in front of me, and they have a whole, probably like a dozen missions each as well. So that's enough content to keep you busy for sure. Beyond that, you also have these historical campaigns, which I didn't really touch. I think there's 2 of them. One of them's Overlord, so you play as the Americans pushing through, and I think there's a dynamism to that campaign. But I tell you what, I clicked on this thing, there was yet another choice called Conquest mode, and my god, like that single-handedly has made me kind of want to review this game, or at the very least pump another dozen hours into it. And what that is a sort of procedural, dynamic, single-player campaign, though I believe you could probably co-op it. A big part of Men of War is that you can co-op it, and that was the same with the first game. And you split between East and West, so there's sort of, I think, 4 teams to choose from. So you got the 2 allies, Americans and Soviets, but then you've got East-West Germany versus East-West allies. And I jumped on the old bloody Germans versus Americans. And you have a tech tree, which is kind of reminiscent of World of Warships, actually. That's what it looks like to me. Geez, I haven't played that in a while. Anyway, focus Scarlet. And on the overworld campaign map, it's sort of like a board game thing. You've got 3 battalions, being infantry, armor, and I don't know, the other one was like support or something like that. And you essentially can choose to commit them to fights as you work your way down the map, and you sort of have a technology tree that you unlock as you go as well. And man, just the potential for this as just being a replayable time sink, it really, really tickles me. I managed to get 2 battles done in it. The first one, I committed all 3 cores, and what happens is you have this sort of echelon, I believe is the term they use, but like a 3-tier reinforcement system, which is something I've seen in Steel Division. Actually, now that I think of it, a lot of Men of War is very similar to Steel Division as well. So yeah, it's got some stuff in common with Company of Heroes, but definitely Steel Division in the more sort of less base building, more skirmish stuff, and the sort of reinforcement waves. You got these little railroad track symbols, there's 2 of them, and they sort of represent the frequency in which you can bring dudes onto the board. And what's really cool is like there's AI often fighting on the front, so you're not necessarily the entire offensive yourself. It's almost got a MOBA-esque ebb and flow of their dudes versus friendly AI dudes, and they're just sort of belting into each other, and then you're deploying your individual skirmish level troops into the mess to try and push and pull the front accordingly. There's very rock, paper, scissors. So yeah, you'll have your first wave, and what you have available is dictated by the battalions that you brought in. So I had a lot of choices in that first battle, but in the second battle I tried bringing armor only, and I actually got dumpstered because I didn't have really an AT solution, surprisingly, because the tanks were just, you know, bloody Panzer I early models. I don't believe they had any AT ability at all, so they're just basically mounted machine guns. And the enemy started sending a lot of light tanks that could just punch holes through them, and I kind of didn't have an answer to them, so very early on, kind of bricked myself. I just had to suicide run riflemen at them with bloody demo packs, and yeah, it was sort of like a trade 6 riflemen for 1 tank, and I had to keep doing that. But essentially, yeah, you reinforce your dudes, you're bottlenecked by how often you can bring them on. So it's not necessarily a meat grinder simulator, it's more about pick the right tool for the right job. Very rock, paper, scissors. Like if you've pushed a tank and it's starting to get drilled by AT guns, well, maybe now you need to bring up mortar support, or think about getting your infantry up there, but you can't just strong point with armor, which is something I kind of tried to do immediately. There's also vision range as well, which is very gamey. Like I got some little motorcycles because they're kind of goofy, and they're pretty much made out of paper mache and useless against everything, but they generate a humongous vision range. So they're kind of like scout cars, even from behind your forces. So I was sort of starting to develop, before I got dumpstered, a bit of like armor pushing up with infantry and bikes sitting in behind, maybe with the mortars to give vision to my front troops. And so you push forward, you've got a bit of a time limit, and you capture the points. There was a couple of different scenarios. Like I said, the first battle was more of an ebb and flow with AI. The second one was kind of more traditional control point and no AI helping me. I had to do it all on my own. Anyway, so if it sounds like I'm gushing, it is, because especially that Conquest mode, that just to me, that's all I want to play. Even though there is a shitload of single player content in here, or co-op as well. And then the multiplayer, which it almost feels like maybe that's the main focus, or at least what the devs are really leaning into. It's hard to say, because honestly, I don't have enough time. I'm already overwhelmed with content as it is. Now, I've left it very, very late, and I didn't mean to. There is a negative, and I don't know how big it's going to be. This game seems to be an always online thing. Again, I don't know if that was the same thing in the first game, and I don't know if these issues that I'm discussing are specific to me being in a pre-release server situation. You get this happen sometimes in a press perspective, but what I'm sort of getting at is, on a couple of occasions, I would go to launch a mission and it has to handshake with the server, and it has a nominal amount of text that comes up saying requesting local game spot or server spot or something like that. But essentially, as part of the handshake permission to start the game, it seems like you need to get permission to start a local instance. And on one occasion, I was sitting there for minutes and the game just wouldn't launch because it wouldn't give me permission to play my own local instance. Now, is that because the servers are, like I said, a pre-release state and maybe there's something going on there? Maybe, I don't know. Or is this a sign of things to come when everyone picks this up and plays it and they want to play single player or just with their mates sitting next to them landing or from next door, but they can't get permission from the server handshake because it's bottlenecked from traffic and they can't even start a local game because of an online handshake? If that's the case, that's going to be fucked. So yeah, sorry to leave this so late in the video, but I probably should have led with it. I just got very excited because I enjoyed Conquest mode. But buyer beware, right? Just be really aware of that. I can't definitively tell you which way it's going to go because, like I said, to harp the point, I'm playing it in pre-release. It might be a nothing burger, but it also could well be a deal breaker. Maybe check out some streams on launch day before you pull the trigger. So yeah, that might be the world's biggest deal breaker. I don't really know, but let's just put that aside. Say that handshaking server connection issue never becomes a problem. This is really groovy. I really like it. As someone who, it's very foreign to me, I kind of like the lethality. I like the tug of war. There's something in my brain that really ticks over this push, pull, rock, paper, scissors, trying to control the front line. And that Conquest mode is just going to keep me busy for hours. Anyway, I like it a lot. Team, let me know what you reckon. Might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.